Hi everyone, please support our videos on Patreon. The link's at the end of the video and in the down there part. Thank you, you're lovely.
I don't have a clever opening line for this video, just go support T. Franklin's work. I like the DC universe. I wouldn't quite call myself a DC fan necessarily, as I don't consume content from their IP frequently enough to suggest long-term fanship. Still, there's some stuff from DC I like. I like the Justice League cartoons, especially the one where the pink kryptonite made Clark go through 3 years of HRT in 3 seconds. I like Lois and Clark after Lily introduced me to it, and I love the Birds of Prey movie. That's about it. So given that, and what you know about me already, you'd think I would absolutely love the Harley Quinn cartoon. Alas, I never actually sat down to watch it. Yeah! Even when it gave us the Harley-Ivy ship everyone really wanted to happen. I mean, I liked the few clips I saw when it came out, very anti-capitalist, which I appreciate. But then I heard claims of anti-Semitism in the writing, and knowing that it's a branch of humor that can overlap with the show's very blatant anti-capitalist humor, I decided I wasn't looking for trouble and kept it off my radar. Literally, all I've consistently watched from the series are the clips of Harley and Ivy being cute and romantic, because I don't need to fully watch a show to enjoy its adorably sapphic couple. Then I saw a promotion for the comic miniseries that takes place immediately after the last season that seems to be all about their new relationship. Intrigued by a line of comics in this universe under the pen of a single writer, I decided to take a look at this T. Franklin and... Oh, I think I'm gonna like this. And like it, I did! The Harley Quinn Eat, Bang, Kill Tour series is the best DC story I've seen since Birds of Prey, and T. Franklin is now the only writer ever hired by Disney that I would trust with the future of this company, and my life. I am not exaggerating when I say that. Everything about this comic is on point. The writing, the artwork, the tone, the themes about trying and failing to outrun your trauma, and the characters. Especially one specific character, but we'll get to her. So it picks up exactly where season 2 left off, where Harley and Ivy are trying to get the fuck out of Dodge after Ivy's disaster of a wedding with Kite Man goes tits up. Having just gotten together in the midst of a high-speed chase, the two decide to go on a honeymoon of sorts. While they do their damnedest to shake Gordon, Ivy is stuck trying to shake a hefty amount of guilt as well as the rest of her emotional baggage. What follows is a lot of hijinks, a metric fuck ton of delightful cameos, gags for days, literally some of the best representation I've seen fucking ever, emotional tension thicker than King Shark, Nightwing being an absolute bisexual icon, telling cops to go to hell, making fun of sweaty nerds, impromptu therapy sessions within the mind, absolute goals, justified murder, and Harley and Ivy being the most romantic and wholesome they've ever been. Alright, easy plus first, the art for the comic is fucking splendid. Like holy shit, artist Max Sarin and Eric Owens in issue 4 really knocked it out of the park with this one. Everything's so dynamic, expressive, and it complements the comic's humor perfectly. When we aren't looking at women just being fucking beautiful or beautifully fucking, we're treated to a gaggle of hilarious faces and set pieces so visually creative I can't help but want to read a single issue over and over again just to bask in it all. You know, I didn't hate the visuals of the Harley Quinn show, I thought it was perfectly serviceable, but after reading this comic and being utterly spoiled by Max and Eric's visuals, I don't know if I can go back to it. Anyway, moving on, there's already too much to gush about. This being a honeymoon road trip Thelma and Louise-esque story, the focus is mostly on Harley and Ivy, and they are fantastic in this comic both as individuals and as a couple. Harley of course is great, she's eccentric, she's energized, she's down for anything, she's a loving partner, she's considerate, if a bit absent-minded, and most importantly, she knows her own worth now. Even if you've never seen an episode of the show itself and only have seen the Bruce Timm series or Suicide Squad, it's so fucking satisfying seeing Harley this happy with life, knowing where she started out. This character is one of the reasons I will always reject the obsessive adheration to the status quo we've been seeing a lot in the comics industry. We wouldn't have gotten stories like this if people were as obsessed with keeping Harley exactly where she started as they are with characters like Peter Parker. No Way Home's ending was fucking bullshit! Now, while Harley is her usual self, Ivy is distinctly not. But that's not a bad thing in this case. I mean, all the important bits are there. She's got the plant powers, she hates eco-killing corporations, she loves Harley, obviously. But even so, something's different. She's more hesitant to get innocent people hurt, she's utterly devastated by the innocent people she has already hurt, she refuses to be honest to Harley about what she's feeling, and she gets quite irritated by her at times over little shit that leads to her blowing up at her. It's not happening constantly, but regularly. Now this seems at least a skosh out of character for Ivy, and perhaps enough to get people to turn up their nose at the story. If they actually paid attention, however, they would realize that this out of character behavior is a deliberate writing choice on T. Franklin's part, as it plays plays into the conflict of the overall comic. Each issue has a relatively episodic approach to conflicts, but Ivy's behavior is an ongoing obstacle all throughout, only getting worse as time goes on. Harley, knowing Ivy very well, is quick to pick up when her girlfriend isn't acting like herself or is unusually snippy. And the fact that Ivy keeps stonewalling Harley's attempts to talk to her about it, insisting that she's fine, and distracting her with sex, makes the schism grow bigger with each issue. You remember what I said about Harley understanding her own worth in this comic? We see that on full display the longer this goes on. From the beginning, she sees that something is bothering Ivy, and when attempts to talk to her about it doesn't work, she instead opts to just make Ivy as comfortable and happy as possible. However, that becomes increasingly difficult as time goes on. When Ivy gets angry at Harley over things that are definitely her fault, Harley is apologetic and adjusts her behavior. When Ivy gets mad at her over things that aren't her fault or are very small and petty in comparison, Harley does stick up for herself. She's very forgiving and compassionate, but she's not going to take poor treatment lying down. Also, Ivy gives Harley the silent treatment at one point, which is, oh, that's uncomfortable. The silent treatment is never okay, folks. Ever. Like, if you need space, just tell your partner you'll need space and that you'll talk to them later. Just don't give them the silent treatment. Don't give them a nebulous not now. Ever. So what is it that's got Ivy acting this way? Mind control? Body double? Shape-shifting android that LexCorp made out of Apocalypse technology? Nope! Unaddressed trauma. Remember that Ivy is an abuse victim that has endured some heavily traumatic experiences both before and after she turned into a life of crime. But more to the point, this comic literally picks up where the season 2 finale left off, where Ivy was left at the altar by fucking Kite Man of all people, in the midst of a disaster of a wedding where a lot of people she cared about got hurt. Even if she finally becomes honest with herself and accepts that she loves Harley, that's still a lot of stuff to weigh on your mind. Trauma literally changes how your brain works, especially when it's fresh trauma just being added to the pile. You can't expect Ivy to be 100% perfect at this point. This shit will affect you and the people you are close to until you manage to sit down and deal with it. The problem? Ivy isn't dealing with it. She's just trying to keep it buried. She spends almost the entire comic refusing to unpack what has happened to her and instead just trying to enjoy her new relationship. But refusing to address her problems mean that they just bubble back to the surface until they're unavoidable. It gets to the point where Harley has done everything she can to help Ivy, but when her behavior doesn't change, Harley stops trying to help. She loves Ivy and she wants her to be okay, but understands that she can't help her if Ivy refuses to let her in. Ivy only starts confronting her trauma when she's confronted with the reality that not dealing with it causes her to push Harley away. Trauma is bad enough, but if you don't deal with it, if you don't take steps to try and heal yourself, you'll only make the situation worse and end up like my father. Oh wow, that got a little personal. Anyway, in a mental scenario that belongs right in a Psychonauts game, Ivy does make a breakthrough and puts herself back on the path of being a better partner to Harley. And the best part is, it isn't framed as some kind of insta-fix that erases all of Ivy's trauma. There's still more to unpack and sort through, but Ivy is actually going to start doing it. Assuming season 3 acknowledges anything from this comic. Seriously, showrunners, you better not fucking ignore Eat, Bang, Kill. Dee Franklin was the best fucking thing to happen to your series, and you'd be blessed to have her input. It seems like I'm focusing more on Ivy than Harley in this segment, and that's mostly because Ivy's behavior and unaddressed trauma really is the main source of conflict here, while Harley is just in rare form all throughout. Imagine that, a story about Harley where she isn't being treated as the problem for a change. I've seen people complain that this comic, among other things, is bad because it just erases Harley and Ivy's villainy, which apparently was what makes them great characters, and just makes them out to be heroes.
It's almost as if making villains out of the mentally ill was a fucking stupid idea.
In reality, it's very refreshing that we get a story about mental health being handled with such grace and respect and totally bereft of ableism. Seriously, this comic has absolutely zero ableist language. Not one issue in this comic says the word stupid or crazy, and I didn't even realize it until that was pointed out to me. Like, holy crap, removing ableist language really is just that easy. Who knew? In that same vein, you all know how important meaningful representation is to us on this channel. So believe me when I say the representation in Eat, Bang, Kill is some of the best I've seen, not just in comics, but in anything ever. And not just LGBT rep. Both in the foreground and the background, from little Easter eggs to whole ass secondary characters, we are treated to lovely BIPOC, disability, and sex worker rep. The last one is just as important, by the way. Sex work is an underappreciated and over-stigmatized profession in the workforce, and they deserve benefits. Especially Peaches here. I love you, Peaches. I've only had you for 2 issues and I want an entire fucking spin-off for you. Yeah, the cup runneth over with representation in this comic, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. When people talk about normalizing diversity through positive representation, this is it right here. T doesn't just have Harley and Ivy carry the rep for this comic. She shows that the DC universe is a diverse place filled to the brim with several different ethnicities, orientations, and disabilities. My favorite example of these are Vixen and Elle. So this comic introduced me to the hero Vixen, given the name Mari, a woman who can conjure the strength and ability of animals thanks to a bloodline technique. And that's the only Naruto joke you're ever gonna get on this channel. Vixen was a character I was never made aware of in my sparse sampling of DC content, and this was probably the best introduction I could have ever received for her because, oh my god, look at her. Look at her. This woman could cave my ribcage in with a look and I would thank her. She's so pretty and cool that when she ended up fighting against Harlan and Ivy, I was conflicted on who to root for. She's so fucking pretty, I'm gonna keel over. But it gets better because she has a girlfriend by the name of Elle. Wait, Mary and Elle? Oh, I get it! Not only do these two have the most adorably sweet dynamic, not only are they a loving and supporting couple to one another, not only have they been together long enough to have immaculate couple banter, not only are they both fucking gorgeous, seriously, these two are so fucking pretty, I'm going to lose my mind. Not only does Mary go down on Elle, with a giraffe tongue no less, take that Batman, you selfish lover, they're fantastic characters all on their own. Mary's a responsible, fairly no-nonsense kind of hero, but not one without compassion and has a heart full of love for Elle, being largely unable to say no to her. Meanwhile, Elle, on top of being a wonderful piece of much-needed disability rep, is also an absolute sweetheart. When Harley gets kidnapped by some Broly-looking motherfucker, Ivy swallows her pride and asks Mari for help. Understandably, Mari is hesitant to help a known criminal like Ivy, and is seconds away from trampling her when Elle comes out and practically pleads for Elle to help Ivy. She's wholly sympathetic to Ivy's plight and is a fantastic host to her all the while. Throughout the comic, there's a general theme of LGBT solidarity where other people on the spectrum lend Harley and Ivy a hand when they're nearly backed into a corner, saying they gotta stick together and look out for each other. This culminates in Elle lending an ear to Ivy and managing to convince Mary to help her. And upon seeing firsthand how much Harley and Ivy love each other, she's swayed to let them both make a getaway rather than taking them in. Like, holy shit, these two are the fucking best. I want an ongoing series with Elle and Mary being the most adorably sapphic couple and living their best lives far away from this hetero nonsense. Get on it, DC! Now at this point you might be thinking, Mikaila, you radiant little twat. You always start singing a property's praises before you get into the bad stuff, but so far this video has been non-stop gushing. Are there any negatives to speak about? Well, not really. I mean, the writing is fantastic, the art is fantastic, the characterization, specifically the exploration of Ivy acting largely out of character and why, is fantastic. The only genuine complaint I have with this comic isn't with the comic itself, but with an ongoing flaw with the comic industry as a whole. Pacing. Being only 22 so pages, comics tend to struggle with having not enough going on from issue to issue because they're trying to keep an even pace, or having so much stuff go on because they're trying to fit so much in the story where it feels like you're just breezing through it. With Eat, Bang, Kill, it's very much the latter, and while it's welcome for the vast majority of it, there are times where it feels like the story should slow down, but the compact nature of the comic doesn't really allow for it. I'll give you an example. In issue 4, Harley and Ivy run into Livewire. Oh, I get it. Anyway, Livewire starts by being super happy for seeing Ivy again, less so for seeing Harley again. They sit down where they start catching up after the disaster wedding. Ivy starts by apologizing for everything that's happened and getting so many of their friends locked up just by association with her. She demonstrates that she feels really bad about it and wishes there was something she could do to help. Livewire admits that Nightfall, her recently made ex-girlfriend, being arrested has left her very upset. She tells Ivy that she really fucked up, says that it's too soon to accept her apology, and that if they don't leave soon, she will get violent. It's a very emotional scene where Ivy is faced with the gravity of her actions, where she actually sees the hurt she's caused the people she cares about and is presented with the consequences of it all. It's a very heavy moment. It's also a single page long. That's right, Livewire hugging Ivy and saying how good it is to see her, then threatening her so that she and Harley will leave, is a single page. Just 5 panels. Now, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and the 5 panels on this page would make it worth about 5,000, plus the words that are actually on the page, bringing it up to 5,219 words. If this were a novel, that would equate to, assuming this is written in font size 12 and single space, 10 pages worth of story. I did an unnecessary amount of math for this. So yeah, pages worth of story crammed into a single page, and given that it's a rather serious, emotionally driven scene, you can't help but feel that it's a tad rushed. There are other scenes like this where it feels like they should just slow down for a bit. Again though, that's the only problem I see this comic having. And it's not an issue unique to Eat, Bang, Kill alone. A lot of comics are like this. And if my biggest complaint about the story is that it just needs a little room to breathe, I consider that a win. To close, for those in the cheap seats right now, I fucking love this comic and I love T. Franklin's portrayal of these characters. I absolutely want more of this. I want Franklin's work to be recognized in the 3rd season. I want Mari and Elle to show up for the 3rd season. I want a whole ass spin-off with Mari and Elle. I just want T. Franklin to write more DC content. What do you want from me? Like seriously, not only should you support this comic, you should go and support T. Franklin. She has done fantastic work over the years, and I absolutely recommend her writing to anyone thirsty for proper representation. And if you love Eat, Bang, Kill, you will absolutely love her original story, Bingo Love. You know what? Next video is gonna be about Bingo Love. Fuck it.